Hello and welcome to episode 51 of the Idiot Book Nook podcast. My name is... One
Off to a
second.
great start already.
1 second, Critter's dying apparently.
Critter, no! We just got you! You can't die for another 10 episodes. That's how it works in anime.
Your contract says so.
I'm okay. What contract?
Don't become like Maze Hughes.
No! That's terrible. How could you? I do have the anime mom hair, unfortunately.
Yeah. Change it quick!
Right.
Before the anime gods realize.
Are we ready?
There we go.
There we go. Now we're ready. No more anime mom
That
hair.
was a mistake.
Hello and welcome to episode 51 of the Idiot Book Nook podcast. My name is Blazewing and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them.
I am the Reading Dragon, and my pronouns are she, her.
I'm Lady Punnet. My pronouns are primarily she, her, sometimes they, them. Today is a she, her kind of day.
And I'm Critter Shy. My pronouns are she, her, with a sprinkle of they, them. Today is a she, them kind of day.
We're going to be doing episode 35 of the Idiot Book Nook podcast today, but first, if you'd like to follow us on our social medias, you're more than welcome to do so at lanktr.ee/idiotbooknook. As you guys can hear, I'm a little under the weather today, so I will not be doing voice acting. You guys are going to get a different voice for all of my roles, which includes Nathaniel, and Lady Punnet is going to be taking my roles today, as Lady Punnet doesn't get to do a lot of speaking roles, and I feel really bad about that.
No, it's not your fault.
No, it's not. I still feel bad. So, with
Doesn't
that,
mean we can't make an effort.
correct. With that being said,
Like, the universe just likes being a bitch sometimes.
sometimes. With that being said, though,
Real quick, though, we forgot to do a congratulatory or a celebration celebration thing for our 50th episode.
which was last episode, so congrats on 50.
Yay!
We are halfway to 100, which we may hit with our next book. We don't know yet. It depends on how long our next book takes.
We should really look into doing something for our 100th episode.
Yep.
So, listeners and viewers of the Twitch, if you guys have suggestions, feel free to comment or send us an email or shoot us some message anywhere, really, that can reach us. We have the link tree in our bios.
Yep.
So you have a way of contacting us to suggest what we can do for our 100th episode.
Absolutely. With that being said, however, narrator, are you ready for chapter 35?
You bet your sweet ass, sweetheart.
For those of you that haven't been watching the Twitch stream, that was a throwback to something before we started recording this episode.
That's what we should do for the 100th episode. All the voices like that.
Yep.
Jade's redeemed a posture check.
I just leaned back.
Well, straighten up.
You gotta straighten your back, sweetheart. It's good for the diaphragm. No, listen here. Listen here, you brat.
I have that mug. No, I don't have that mug. My cat knocked it over.
You mean this one?
Yeah, fluent in sarcasm. I used to have that mug, but Nugget knocked it over on accident one day.
I love how ginormous it is.
Yep.
You should turn your
It's like
cats.
half my face.
You should turn your cats into Instagram stars and have them pay for a new mug.
I wish.
Do it.
Anywho. The Bartimaeus Trilogy, Book 1, The Amulet of Samarkand. Written by Jonathan Stroud. Narrated by the Reading Dragon. Voice acted by the Reading Dragon, Lady Punnet, and Critter Shy for Blazewing 2010 is a little under the weather. Chapter 35. The crossroads was the place for the ambush. Any vehicles approaching it had to slow down for fear of accident, and it was concealed from the distant Heddleham gateway by a thick clump of oaks and laurel. This also promised good cover for lurking. Accordingly, lurk, 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 lurk. Accordingly, we made our way there that night. The boy crawled along the base of the hedges beside the road. I flitted in front of him in the guise of a bat. No sentries materialized beside us. No watchers flew overhead. The boy reached the crossroads and burrowed into the undergrowth below the biggest oak tree. I hung from a bough, keeping watch. My master slept, or tried to. I observed the rhythms of the night, the fleeting movements of owl and rodent, the scruffles of foraging hedgehogs, the prowling of the restive jinn. In the hours before dawn, the cloud cover drifted away and the stars shone down. I wondered whether Lovelace was reading their import from the roof of the hall, and what they told him. The night grew chill. Frost sparkled across the fields. All at once, it struck me that my master would be suffering greatly from the cold. A pleasant hour passed. Then another thought struck me. He might actually freeze to death in his hiding place. That would be no good. I'd never escape the Tim. Reluctantly, I spiraled down into the bushes and went in search of him. To my grudging relief, he was still alive, if somewhat blue in the face. He was huddled in his coat under a pile of leaves, which rustled perpetually with his shivering.
"Want some heat?"
I whispered. His head moved a little. It was hard to tell whether it was shiver or shake. Lady Punnet, you are Nathaniel.
No, that's not Nathaniel, that's Bartimaeus.
Oh, sorry.
The second no is Nathaniel.
Sorry.
No.
No.
Why?
His jaw was clamped so tight it could barely unlock.
It might draw them to us.
Sure, it isn't pride, not wanting help from a nasty demon. You'd better be careful with all this frost about. Bits might drop off. I've seen it happen.
Critter, if you want to take the footnotes this chapter.
Sure. Very, very nasty it was. Remind me to tell you about it someday.
Leave me.
Just a quick reminder that the footnotes come at the end of the paragraph, not at the end of the sentence.
Well, it was still.
Well, no, Blazewing is saying in general.
Just in general, they come at the end of the paragraph, not at the end of the sentence, because Critter has not done footnotes before.
That's fair. Cool.
Okay. Suit yourself.
I returned to my tree. Some while later, as the eastern sky began to brighten, I heard him sneeze, but otherwise he remained stubbornly silent, locked into his self-appointed discomfort. Oh well, with the arrival of dawn, hanging about as a bat became a less convincing occupation. I took myself off under the bushes and changed into a field mouse. The boy was where I had left him, stiff as a board and rather dribbly about the nose. I perched on a twig nearby.
How about a handkerchief for my master?
I said. With some difficulty, he raised an arm and wiped his nose on his sleeve. He sniffed.
Has anything happened yet?
Still a bit under your left nostril, otherwise clean.
I meant on the road.
No, too early. If you've got any food left, you should eat it now. We need to be all set when the first car comes by.
As it transpired, we needn't have hurried. All 4 roads remained still and silent. The boy ate the last of his food, then crouched in the soaking grass under a bush, watching one of the lanes. He appeared to have caught a slight chill and shivered uncontrollably inside his coat. I scurried back and forth, keeping an eye out for trouble, but finally returned to his side.
Remember,
I said,
the car mustn't be seen to stop more than a few seconds, or one of the sentries might smell a rat. We've got to get on board as soon as it reaches the crossroads. You'll have to move fast.
I'll be ready.
I mean really fast.
I'll be ready, I said.
Yes, well, I've seen slugs cover ground more quickly than you, and you've made yourself ill by refusing my help last night.
I'm not ill.
Sorry, didn't catch that. Your teeth were chattering too loudly.
I'll be fine. Leave me alone.
This cold of yours could let us down big time if we get in the house. Lovelace might follow the trail of... Listen.
What?
A car! Coming from behind us. Perfect. Now, perfect. It'll slow right here. Wait for my order.
I scampered through the long grasses to the other side of the copse. Is that supposed to be cops or copsy? C-O-P-S-E.
Copes?
Copse.
Cops? No, copes. Copes, I think.
Yeah. Hey, Critter Shy. C-O-P-S-E. Cops or copes or copsy?
I think it's like, since it's an E at the end,
Copes?
it says its name. So, copes?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Copes.
Okay. Let me just start this paragraph over then. I scampered through the long grasses to the other side of the copse and waited behind a large stone on the dirt bank above the road. The noise of the oncoming vehicle grew loud. I scanned the sky. No watchers could be seen, and the trees hid the road from the direction of the house. I readied myself to spring, then hunched down behind the stone. No good. A black and shiny limousine. A magician's car. Too risky to try. It flashed past in a welter of dust and pebbles, all skirling brakes and shining bonnet. I caught a glimpse of its occupant. A man I did not know, broad-lipped, pasty, with slicked back hair. There was no sign of an imp or other guardian, but that meant nothing. There was no point in ambushing a magician. I returned to the boy, still motionless under the bush.
No go,
I said.
Magician.
I've got eyes.
He sniffed messily.
I know him, too. That's Lime, one of Lovelace's cronies. Don't know why he's in on the plot. He's not very powerful. I once stung him with some mites. He swelled up like a balloon.
Did you?
I confess, I was impressed.
What happened?
He shrugged.
They beat me. Is that someone coming?
A bicycle had appeared around the bend in front of us. Upon it was a short, fat man, his legs whirring around like helicopter blades. Above the bicycle's front wheel was an enormous basket covered with a weighted white cloth.
Butcher,
I said. The boy shrugged.
Maybe. Do we get him?
could you wear his clothes?
No.
Then we let him pass. There'll be other options.
Red-faced and perspiring freely, the cyclist arrived at the crossroads, skidded to a halt, wiped his brow, and proceeded on toward the hall. We watched him go, the boy's eyes mainly on the basket.
We should have taken him out,
he said wistfully.
I'm starving.
Time passed, and the bicycling butcher returned. He whistled as he pedaled, making light of his journey. His basket was now empty, but no doubt his wallet had been nicely filled. Beyond the hedge, one of the sentries trailed in his wake with great loping bounds, its body and tattered robes almost translucent in the sunlight. The butcher free-wheeled into the distance. The boy suppressed a sneeze. The sentry drifted away. I scuttled up a thorn stem that ran through the bush and peered out at the top. The skies were clear. The winter sun bathed the fields with unseasonable warmth. The roads were empty. Twice more during the next hour, vehicles approached the crossroads. The first was a florist's van driven by a slatternly woman smoking a cigarette. I was about to pounce on her when out of the corner of my mouse's eye I spied a trio of blackbird sentries sailing lazily over the copse at low altitude. Their beady eyes flicked hither and thither. No chance. They would have seen everything. I hid and let the woman drive on her way. The blackbirds flew off, but the next passerby served me no better. A magician's convertible with the top down, this time coming from the direction of the hall. The driver's face was mostly obscured under a cap and a pair of driving goggles. I only caught a flash of reddish beard, short and clipped, as he shot by.
"Who's that?"
I asked.
"Another accomplice?"
Never seen him before. Maybe he was the one who drove in last night?
"He's not sticking around, whoever he is."
The boy's frustration was getting to him. He beat a fist against the grass.
If we don't get in soon, all the other guests will start arriving. We need time in there to find out what's going on. Ugh! If only I had more power!
The eternal cry of all magicians,
I said warily.
"Have patience."
He looked up at me savagely.
You need time to have patience.
He snarled.
We have no time.
But in fact, it was only 20 minutes later that we got our chance. Once again, the sound of a car. Once again, I crossed to the other side of the copse and took a look from the top of the bank. As soon as I did so, I knew the time had come. It was a dark green grocer's van, tall and squared with smart black mud guards and a newly washed look. On its side, in proud black lettering, were painted the words, "Squalls and Son, grocers of Croydon, tasty comestibles for society." And to my great delight, it appeared as if Squalls and Son themselves were sitting in the cab. An elderly man with a bald head was at the wheel. At his side sat a chipper youth wearing a green cap. Both looked eager and well spruced up for their big day. The old man's head seemed to have been buffed until it shone. The field mouse flexed its muscles behind its ambush stone. The van drew closer, its engine rattling and growing under the bonnet. I checked the skies. No blackbirds or other dangers. All clear. The van drew abreast of the copse, out of sight of the distant Heddleham gateway. Both Squalls and Son had wound down their windows to catch the pleasant air. Son was humming a happy tune. Midway past the copse, Sun caught a slight rustling noise from outside the cab. He glanced to his right and saw a field mouse whistling through the air in a karate attack position, claws out, hind legs foremost, right at him. The mouse flopped straight through the open window. Neither Squalls nor Sun had time to react. There was a whirl of inexplicable movements from within the cab. It rocked violently to and fro. The van swerved gently and ran up against the dirt bank at the side of the road, where its wheels skidded and slipped. The engine petered and cut out. A moment's silence. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Bartimaeus is confirmed cartoon protagonist.
Yes. That I am. I must make things entertaining for some parts here. A moment's silence. The passenger door opened. A man who looked very like Squalls hopped out, reached back in, and drew out the unconscious bodies of Squalls and Sun. Sun had lost the majority of his clothes. It was the matter of a moment to drag the pair across the road, up the bank, and into the depths of the copse. I hid them there under a bramble thicket and returned to the van.
Critter. Farquhar would have argued that it was more expedient simply to devour them, while Jabor wouldn't have argued at all, but just done it. But I find the human flesh makes my essence ache. It's like eating bad seafood. Too much accumulated grime per mouthful.
It's disgusting, trust me. Let's see here. This was the worst bit for me. Gin and vehicles just don't mix. It's an alien sensation to be trapped in a tin shroud, surrounded by the sounds of petrol, oil, and artificial leather, by the stench of people and their creations. Ugh. It reminds you how weak and shoddy it must feel to be a human, requiring such decrepit devices to travel far. Besides, I didn't really know how to drive.
To date, the only experience I'd had of driving had been during the Great War, when the British Army had camped 30 miles outside Prague. A Czech magician, who shall remain nameless, charged me to steal certain documents. They were well guarded, and I was forced to pass the enemy djinn by driving a staff ambulance into the British camp. My driving was very bad, but at least it enabled me to complete my disguise by filling the ambulance with each soldier I knocked down en route. When I entered the camp, the men were rushed to the hospital, while I slipped away to steal the campaign plans.
Quite a messy mission indeed, but I made do. Nevertheless, I got the engine started again and managed to reverse away from the bank into the middle of the road. Then onward to the crossroads. At this, all this had taken scarcely a minute, but I admit I was anxious. A sharp-eyed sentry might well wonder why the van was taking so long to clear the trees. At the crossroads, I slowed, took a hasty look around, and leaned toward the passenger window. "Quick, get in!" A nearby bush rustled frantically. There was a wrenching at the cab door, and the boy was inside, breathing like a bull elephant. The door slammed shut. An instant later, we were on our way, turning right along the Heddleham Road.
"It's you, isn't it?"
he panted, staring at me.
"Of course. Now, get changed quick as you can. The sentries will be on us in moments."
He scrambled around on the seat, ripping off his coat and searching for Sun's discarded shirt, green jacket, and trousers. How smart this outfit had been 5 minutes before. Now it was all crumpled.
"Hurry up! They're coming!"
Across the fields, from both sides, the sentries approached, hopping and bounding, black rags flapping. The boy pawed at his shirt.
The buttons are so tight, I can't undo them!
Pull it over your head! The sentry to my left was approaching fastest. I could see its eyes, 2 black ovals with pinpricks of light at their cores. I tried to accelerate, pressed the wrong pedal. The van shuddered and nearly stopped. The boy's head was halfway through the shirt collar at the time. He fell forward against the dashboard.
Ow! You did that on purpose!
I pressed the correct pedal. We speeded up once more. Get the jacket on or we're done. And the cap.
What about the trousers?
Forget them. No time. The boy had the jacket on and was just jamming the cap down on his tousled head when the 2 sentries drew alongside. They remained on the other side of the hedges, surveying us with their shining eyes. Remember, we shouldn't be able to see them, I said. Keep looking straight ahead.
I am.
A thought struck him.
Won't they realize what you are?
They're not powerful enough. I devoutly hoped that this was true. I thought they were ghouls, but you can never be sure these days.
Ghouls, lessergen, of an unsavory cast, keen on the taste of humans, hence efficient, if frustrated sentries. They can only see onto 5 planes. I was squalls on all but the 7th.
It's a lot of energy.
Everything seems to aspire to be something better than it is. Mites aspire to be molars, molars aspire to be foliates, foliates aspire to be jinn, some jinn aspire to be afrits, or even myriads. In each case, it's hopeless. It is impossible to alter the limitations of one's essence. But that doesn't stop many entities waltzing around in the guise of something more powerful than they are. Of course, when you're pretty darn perfect to start with, you don't want to change anything.
And perfection is granted, not always earned. For a time, we drove along the road toward the bank of trees. Both of us looked straight ahead. The sentries kept pace behind the van. Presently, the boy spoke again.
What am I going to do about the trousers?
Nothing. You'll have to do with what you've got. We'll be at the gate soon. Your top half's smart enough anyway.
But...
Smooth down your jacket. Get rid of any wrinkles you can see. It'll have to do. All right. I'm Squalls, and you're my son. We're delivering groceries to Heddleham Hall. Fresh for conference day. Which reminds me, we'd better check what it is we're actually bringing. Can you have a look?
But...
Don't worry, there's nothing odd about you peering in the back.
Between us and the rear wall of the cab was a metal hatch. I gestured at it.
Have a quick peek. I would, but I'm driving.
Very well.
He kneeled on the seat and, opening the hatch, stuck his head through.
It's quite dark. There's lots of stuff in here.
Can you make anything out?
I took a glance at him and nearly lost control of the wheel. The van swerved wildly toward the hedge. I righted it just in time.
Your trousers! Sit back down. Where are your trousers?
He sat back in his seat. The view to my left improved markedly.
I took my ones off, didn't I? You told me not to put the new ones on.
I didn't realize you ditched the others. Put them on!
But the sentries will see.
The sentries already seen, believe you me. Just put them on.
As he fumbled with his shoes against the dashboard, I shook my shiny head.
Oh, we'll have to hope ghouls aren't too clever when it comes to the etiquette of human attire. Maybe they'll think it's normal for you to be changing costume now. but the guards at the gate will be more perceptive. You can be sure of that. We were nearly at the boundary of the estate. Trees spanned the view through the widescreen. Oh, no, sorry, let me do that again. Trees spanned the view through the windscreen. The road ahead curved into them in leisurely fashion. Almost immediately, the great arc came in sight. Constructed from massive blocks of yellow sandstone, it rose from the bushes at the roadside with the portentous solidity of 100,000 similar arches across the world. What particular lordling had paid for this one, and why he had done so, I doubted anyone knew. The faces on the
Caryatids.
The faces on the caryatids that held up the roof were worn away. The detail on the inscriptions likewise. Eventually, the ivy that clung to it, all would destroy the stonework too. Oh well. Above and around the ark, the red dome soared into the sky and extended into the woods. Only through the ark was the way clear.
One moment.
Did you do number 6 for the footnote?
No, that's what we're getting to. So.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I find things are slightly separated differently between my PDF
Yes.
copy and what you guys are getting.
Yes.
I am so sorry.
You're good.
I saw that footnote, that cliff note number, and my brain.
It's all good.
I shall read it now. Cliff note!
Cliff Note!
All built to celebrate one's insignificant tribe's victory over another. From Rome to Beijing, Timbuktu to London. Triumphal arches crop up wherever there are cities, heavy with the weight of the earth and death. I've never seen one I liked.
Our accompanying sentries were looking ahead of them expectantly. A few meters from the ark, I slowed the van to a halt, but kept the engine on. It thrummed gently. We sat in the cab, waiting. A wooden door opened in one side of the ark, and a man came striding out. At my side, the boy gave a slight shiver. I glanced at him. Pale as he was, he'd just gone paler. His eyes were round as dinner plates. "What is it?" I hissed.
It's him. The one I saw on the disc, the one who brought the amulet to Lovelace.
There was no time to answer. No time to act. Strolling casually, smiling a little smile, the murderer approached the van.
And thus ends that chapter of the Amulet of Samarkand.
On a fucking cliffhanger.
So quick note. So phrasing. So we know Bartimaeus was somehow a part of the Great War. So for those who don't know, that was World War I.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting how he refers to it as the Great War, though.
That's what it was called then.
Well, yeah, but this book was supposedly this is taking place after World War II in modern times.
Yes,
I think it's one of those.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's one of those things where I think even for most people, if you've lived through an event, you'll keep calling it what it was called then, not what people grew to call it later.
Yeah, it's because you lived through that part that's been ingrained in your mind, or through that part of history it's been ingrained in your mind effectively.
So, for example, a lot of people call the current events going on surrounding the current pandemic, COVID-19, the Great Panini.
True.
Which means we will probably continue to call it that until the day that we die.
The Great Panini?
The Great Panini.
Yes.
Because,
I call it that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Panini is a nicer way of saying
which is
pandemic.
Funny. That actually came from social media and their original attempt to quash any news of it.
Yep.
It's because people had to It's, like people saying only pants instead of the other thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had to code everything.
Yeah, because social media and news outlets and basically just media outlets in general were and still are doing heavy censorship.
Correct.
Right. So, going back to this though, so apparently during the Great War, Bartimaeus had been summoned by a Czech magician.
Czech.
The Czech Republic. So, what side was the Czech Republic on?
Russian. So I'm not sure, but I think he's making allusion to the actual Rasputin.
Rasputin was a part of World War One?
He lived during that time, yeah.
Oh.
1 second.
Does this mean that the Romanovs were probably magicians, since it seems like everyone in world power? Is Queen Elizabeth a magician in this book series?
Possibly.
So,
Is that why she's still alive?
More than likely.
Grigory...
Dude, that would be so hilarious. Because Queen Elizabeth...
Her corgis are just gin.
Oh my god, so this is kind of leading me down a little bit of a rabbit hole, because on our Queen Elizabeth's coronation day, she actually did have a meeting with the Druids of that area.
Grigory Rasputin was born the 21st of January 1869 and died the 30th of December 1916.
Dang.
1916.
Yep.
Dang.
Wait. So he died 2 years into the war.
Yep. And had his penis cut off in the process.
He died halfway through the Great War. You'll also notice military veterans, whether or not they served, people who have had family in the military, may also refer to to World War I as the Great War as well.
I wonder if Jonathan Stroud wasn't able to had to say "Who shall remain nameless," because when he wrote the book, 100 years hadn't passed yet, so Rasputin wasn't a part of public domain yet.
Probably. Because this particular book was originally published in 2003.
So that would have been 13 years short of him passing.
What were you about to say, Critter Shark?
I was just gonna say, I don't think when it comes to stuff like that rules like public domain and all that apply.
I mean, true. Was it Disney? No, it wasn't Disney that did the Anastasia.
No, it was Warner
movie.
Brothers.
Yeah. Which, I like that. I like the idea that the Grand Duchess Anastasia survived. So much PTSD she would have gone through. But.
Yeah.
Alright, so, since Vase is not feeling the coolest...
Well,
What's up, Vase?
do we have anything else we want to discuss about this chapter?
Nathaniel's starting to not feel well, which is concerning, because here's the thing, he's 12, and he was out all night with no fire, and if he doesn't have a decent immune system, he's at a high risk of getting pneumonia.
So he's gonna have to get himself indoors soon and get some hot food in him, preferably a soup.
Yep.
But here's the thing. Oh, I'm realizing. If Bartimaeus is smart, he can use this. He could say, we were on our way here, my boy insisted he was fine. He suddenly got really, really bad. I promise he hasn't touched any of your produce. Could my boy come in and sit down as I'm, bringing the stuff in? Just so we can, warm up a bit. He was just so excited to come see this beautiful place. Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So on and so forth.
Unless this is an area where men have to be a little bit gruffer.
Too bad it was... If he's a kid, a kid,
yeah,
a young kid, I imagine it might be it's that phase, kids have to be gruff, but if they're sick, it's still a sick kid.
Yeah.
Well, we also
But
don't
also
know
they're-
what. We also don't have like a distinct. I don't think we have a distinct time for this book, do we? We haven't been. It hasn't. They haven't named a year, have they? Or is
I
my
know
brain?
they have phones.
I don't believe so. But yes, the descriptions of things have been fairly, I would say, broad, so that you can like infer a certain degree of, at the very least, like a mixed, like perhaps like late industrial, if you consider like the presence of magic delaying.
Set in a
Certain
modern
things.
day London spiced with magicians and mystery.
I want to say that at the very least, I don't think they have cell phones.
So,
We haven't-
Because we've heard landlines a lot. And who
Yeah.
has a landline these days?
Right?
So, because the book was originally published in 2003, and it is in the dust cover of my copy, it says that it is set in modern day London. We can at least infer that it's sometime between the 1980s to 2003.
Okay.
That would also, like, coincide with it because no one... So cell phones were a thing in the early 2000s. But they were like that... Only certain people had them?
Yeah.
Well, you had
Only if
them
you
like
were,
you had like the ones in like the late or mid 80s who were like the big giant bricks that, like you said, only certain people had, or like pagers and things like that.
Yeah.
But bearing in mind that since we're also seeing this through very much a magician's point of view, I imagine they would keep landlines, but they would see no point in cell phones, because why would you need a cell phone when you could have a messenger imp? However, it seems messenger imps can be intercepted quite easily by a powerful enough djinn.
That being said, who says a cell phone signal can't be?
Right.
True. But it could be like playing into that whole trope of magic versus technology.
Fair.
Also, it seems like with the whole like, oh, Rasputin had demons, it seems like it's leaning really heavily into the whole political figures typically are magicians, which from what we've seen would make sense because Nathaniel's always alluding to how magicians are really high up in society and parliament and all of this stuff. So it's making me wonder if, like, in London Parliament, like, the Parliament is actually the Parliament building, like,
Well-
where they meet up and stuff. In this world, anyway.
Generally speaking, I think to sit in Parliament House, I don't know if in this one the Parliament and the House of Lords would be the same.
Well, hold on a second. How many
I don't- I don't-
seats in
I-
Parliament?
Well, because they have two different like tiers, or they have a couple tiers, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh.
the House of Lords is not really anymore. It's not a thing anymore. But yeah.
So, House of Commons of the United Kingdom, there is 650 seats.
Okay.
So at the very least, we know half of those, because Nathaniel's always said there's 300 seats in the Parliament. So 300 of those could take up, basically, the Magician's Parliament.
Unless
But
there's another tier of parliament that specifies 300.
Parliament of the United Kingdom, the House of Commons, so it's basically... So it sounds like Parliament and House of Commons are, like, interchangeable. But also, I still like the idea that the Queen of England is also a super powerful magician, and her corgis are all, like, super, super high-powered djinn, and that's why they're allowed everywhere she goes, because, one, no one says no to the Queen. She's allowed to drive even if she doesn't have a driver's license. And two, who expects corgis
Yep.
to be the defense for the Queen of England?
Yep. Her army of corgis.
Her army of corgis, and I think maybe, like, her favorite bodyguards. Probably also Jin.
Oh.
And that's why she's like, nope, you're not a powerful enough magician yet to take over. I am sticking around until then.
Yeah.
Me and my corgis will see ourselves out.
Pretty much.
I don't care
Okay.
what the rest of you are doing. We're gonna go have tea.
Yep.
I mean, even if they weren't magicians themselves, they would probably, like, they'd obviously hire, like, what they feel is the best of the best, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would think so. I think at the very least, like, the head of security for, like, royalty would be magicians. So in this case, for an example, maybe not the best example with what's going on in the States right now, but the person in charge of the military for the White House and security for the White House, so the CIA, would probably be a magician.
So, if I'm gonna need to look this up. Hold on. Before, I need to double check something real quick.
You double check the thing. Does anyone else have, like, any points about, like, possible lore dumping that could go on with this?
Oh, I got nothing.
I'm just anxiously waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, me too. I think this has been a good chapter.
It was nicely paced.
Yep.
I like the interactions.
Yep.
The Ninja Mouse, can't go wrong with that.
The Ninja Mouse was my favorite part. I want to see an animatic of that.
So
Just karate mouse.
So when it comes to the American military, this was the thing I needed to double check. It is actually the President of the United States that is Commander-in-Chief of the Army and the Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into the actual service of the United States. He may require the opinion in writing of the principal officer in each of the executive departments, blah, blah, blah. Basically, constitution.congress.gov states that it is the President of the United States that is Commander-in-Chief of the military, or at least parts of it.
Sorry for America.
It's why traditionally they were required to have military service.
Which is why I personally have been really miffed about the recent choices in the last near 2 decades, but we're not going to get into that. That's not what we are bringing to this channel.
Correct.
We are bringing chaos and good times. And bird.
Correct.
And ninja mice!
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up this chapter. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed this chapter. Chapter, what, 35? Of the Amulet of Samarkand. 36?
I think so. Hold on, let me double check. Yeah, no, we just did chapter 35.
Yeah, 36 is the next one.
Yep.
So, yeah. This continues with the theory that all leaders either had employed powerful magicians or are them themselves.
I now have a headcanon that the Queen of England and that our Queen of England is actually either a very high-powered magician or has hired high-powered magician.
I think, well, the Queen of England was actually a part of, like, because all ruling members have to do military service. So I can't picture her, like, letting other people do it for her.
I envision the Queen of England just walking around in the battlefield, whapping people with her walking stick or umbrella.
Well, apparently, if I recall correctly, I think the Queen of England's a sniper.
Yeah.
A sniper?
Yeah, 1 second.
Huh.
Yeah, because she has done military service, too.
Yeah.
And on her coronation day.
I knew she did military service, much like the President of the United States. I believe the royalty. I believe the royalty also has to have some sort of military service under their belt so they can command properly.
Yes. My mug has caught up with me. I will be right back.
Okay.
Okay, so if you look on Google, there is a picture of, like, the Queen of England from maybe 10, 15 years ago with, like, a high-power sniper rifle.
Can you post that link in the chat, please?
I will do my best. But I mean, it's like she's in her full queen garb. Yep, okay. Uno momento, por favor. So. Okay.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you're seeing it? The one with, like, the brown coat and the blue hat?
Yes.
Well, damn.
So she knows how to operate a sniper rifle, like high-powered sniper rifle, not even like itty-bitty. That's like, it needs to be on a table.
Battle Queen mode activated.
Y'all want to see what she looked like with a sniper when she was young?
Sure.
The Queen's relationship with the armed forces began with, as Princess Elizabeth, she joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service in 1945, becoming the first female member of the royal family to join the armed services as a full-time active member.
Ooh.
Queen Elizabeth knows how to handle a gun.
Yup.
Not just any gun, a sniper rifle.
With that being said, I think this is a good place to break this. So, we hope you've enjoyed this chapter, chapter 35, episode 51 of the Idiot Book Nook podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you around again, as usual, for our next chapter. For the Idiot Book Nook, I'm Blazewing.
I am the Reading Dragon.
I'm Lady Punnet.
And I'm Crittershy.
And if you'd like to follow us on social media, linktr.ee/idiotbooknook. See you soon.
Queen Elizabeth is an artillery artificer.
Yes!
I need to make this now.
Do it!
Ah!